And now for something completely different.
And now it is time for yet another Facebook feed. What the hell is in my Facebook feed? What the hell has appeared in my Facebook? Well, let's just have a check and see some of the wacky, crazy, and perhaps even devastating or hilarious. I don't know. Let's check it, shall we? Some saved Facebook feed that's appeared through. Look at this one right here. We have... Why are most planes painted white? Apparently, there is an explanation for that. Why don't we read that and get a little more education? Never really thought why they're painted white. White plane will help protect you from the sun. So, this is because it reflects the sun. Interesting. So it's like wearing sunscreen. Hey, what's another reason? So, the white color makes it super easy to spot any inconsistencies in the plane. That makes sense. Although, to be perfectly blunt, if you can't notice that there's a problem with the plane, like say, for example, it's missing an engine, then I don't care what color it's painted, you need to be fired. Hey. And the final reason, a lot to do with costs. White paint, of course, being the cheapest of all the paint options. So that actually makes sense, because, you know, the airline does deserve to make a extremely large profits and inconvenience us in every way, shape and form. So why not stock up on the white paint, keep your money stored in that hangar, and, hey, let's all get ourselves on a plane. A nice white plane. Because it's not like there's any other colors that could be more reflective than white, right? You know? Whatever. Here's one. It's kind of circulated through my feed. Change your email password now if you're on this list of 711 million accounts. So the email addresses and passwords of 711 million people have been published online during a gigantic data leak by a spam bot called Onliner, which has been dumped on a server thought to be located in the Netherlands. So apparently this bot was designed to spread malware that steals bank details and infects people's computers to pump out more virus as well as more spam. I guess that sort of helps them with their purpose. And the name for the unwanted emails often sent by the scammers. Well, that's rather interesting right there. So, Troy Hunt, who owns a website known as Havel Been Pawned, said the leak was the largest single set of data I've ever loaded into HIBP. His website apparently offers easy way of finding out if your details have been published in data breach. So that is have I can't read. Have I been pawned? That is P-W-N-E-D, but you know, the have I been pawned. And apparently, if you're on the list in the index, then you may need to change your password, apparently. But then what if that's a scam as well? Who knows? Internet is a dark, desolate, evil place after all. Could very well be lying about the whole thing. Yeah, here's an old one, but a decent one. United Airlines are in trouble after removing a toddler from a $1,000 seat and giving it to a standby passenger. This is old news, but still coming through my feed again, so it's obviously still getting circulated through. This was back in July 10th of 2017. So, yeah, this isn't the first time they've done this, and it's been all over the news, quite a bit, but the fact that it's still getting circulated around, that's definitely interesting. But for those that haven't been awake for the last few months, let me give you the gist of it. Essentially what happened was a 3-year-old, so basically Shirley Yamaguchi and her 3-year-old son Taizo were traveling from Hawaii to Boston for a teachers' conference when a stewardess evicted Taizo from his seat and gave it to another passenger. Yamaguchi claims her son was forced to sit on her lap for the entire flight when she had specifically bought him his own seat. The law requires children over the age of 2 to sit independently. So, basically for the entire flight, this child had to sit on her mother's lap. So if something went wrong during the flight, during the plane, that'd be a big problem right there. So it was an 18-hour flight, mother and toddler forced to spend the final left in discomforts. So she didn't speak up, and because of that, unfortunately, especially after the incident with Dr. Dao, which was the other incident with United Airlines, where they got, I think it was airport security or police, basically air marshals, who basically beat him and then dragged him off the plane. And, the doctor had paid for the flight, and he was a doctor, he had appointments, and he basically said to them, I can't, leave this flight. But it's one of those things where it's like, they overbook the flight, and then because they made a mistake, like a lot of departments do these days, well, sorry, but that's just how it's going to be. You're just going to have to deal with it. And because he had the audacity to stand up to basically the airports, which is something that you just don't do these days, apparently, because after 9/11 and all that, we've got to trust the airlines. We've got to let them do what they have to do to ensure our safety. And then this happens. They cause an issue. This is not the first time. There are several other incidents, where this happens. They overbook flights a lot, and then looks like everyone showed up to their flight because they want to make sure that their flights are completely booked, that everyone's on them. But they also figure, well, there's a certain percent of people that don't make their flights, that they either reschedule, rebook, or they just don't turn up, because they missed their flight. Maybe they're stuck in airport security getting screened, maybe they got thrown off the flights, and so they don't miss out on any profit or anything. They overbook a flight, and then when things like this happen, they then are forced to have to basically take someone off the flight. And instead of going to the person on standby and saying to them, yeah, look, sorry, but this flight, everyone showed up, they then do that and say to the person on the flight, you're going to have to go because we've got another guy who just paid money for this flight. Even though everyone's paid for the flight, including the people on the plane, they've gone through all that effort. And we all know just what kind of effort it is just to get on a freaking plane, and how touchy and how sensitive everything is nowadays. You can't do anything. And there's certain words that you can't say, certain things you can't do around an airport. Always, just all this political correctness. And then this militaristic rule where it's like, even if the person's in the right, you're basically going to be, this is how we run things, and you don't have a choice, you don't have any rights. That's it. I can understand why it's just continually going through the feed, because it's a discussion, even right now, me talking about it. There's several different points to cover in this whole sordid ordeal, and I know that it's something that the airlines haven't stopped doing. I know for a fact that they would still, particular airlines would still overbook flights and run by their own rules, and no one's going to hold them accountable because, well, if we go after the airlines and hold them accountable for their actions, then the terrorists win. Because assuming that an airline could be wrong about a presumption about a pre-existing idea, whatever. So here's another one, and this is an old one, but, a police officer reaches 220 k's an hour to catch motorists driving in right-hand lane. So, in other words, a person that was driving in the right lane, and the rules are, obviously, depending where you are, basically travelling in the fast lane, in the overtaking lane, continuously, and then when there's no traffic, then you're supposed to get into the other lane, the left lane or the right lane, depending what side of the road you drive on. But essentially, you go through the overtaking lane, the passing lane, the fast lane, and then, if ever it does clear up, which is rarely, you then get into to the slower lane. Now, obviously this person didn't do that. And on the one hand, there's commendation for saying, okay, yep, fair enough, because I don't know about you guys, but I am sick and tired of people not doing the right thing. And when you know who you are as well, you people drive in the fast lane and don't pass cars. There are people that want to do the speed limit. You don't do the speed limit, but you travel in the right lane. You guys are absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, the scum of the roads. Because people like you make people like me, who want to do the actual speed limit, run a little late and have just a little more stress in my life. But nevertheless, a cop traveling at 220 k's an hour, and this was in, where was it exactly? New South Wales. Yeah, that sounds about right, because New South Wales, they will get you for any little thing, anything at all. Even if they can let you off, even if they go by technicality and say, well, look, no harm, no foul this time, but next time, nope, they'll do whatever it takes to pin you down. It's a bit of an extreme. If you've got to reach speeds of 220 k an hour to catch someone travelling in the right-hand lane who's probably doing the speed limit, just not passing over into the slower lane, I think that your priorities are kind of being set astray, and it is now definitely more about revenue raising than it is about protecting the public. Like, you would expect someone to be travelling 220 k an hour in an actual emergency, not just to get someone out of the way and fine them, which was about a $325 fine, by the way, but that just seems very desperate, and it certainly screams revenue more than public safety. And I apologize for all my cop friends who may or may not be listening to this, but you know this to be true, so... Now this one's definitely intriguing, because the post says originally from January the 2nd, 2015, but this is actually something that kind of, I guess, went a little viral, maybe because an investigation, lawsuits maybe went through. This is regarding an investigation regarding a video of a cheerleader screaming while being forced to do the splits. Now, this is one that I'm guessing a lot of people that are basically, they have access to any form of social media would be very aware of this, where a cheerleader was basically forced to do the splits. 13-year-old Allie Wakefield held down by her fellow East High School cheerleaders and her coach in a June training camp while she screamed and cried in pain. So, this has happened quite a bit, but it's only partially condemned. The team's coach, Ozell Williams, thousands of followers on Instagram, and, you know, seemingly knows what he's doing, but obviously immoral, unethical, and the fact that, you know, basically abusing a child, and did quite extensive, I think there were muscle tears, there was even some, you know, potentially damage to ligaments and maybe even tendons, you know, because if the body can't stretch that far, and let's face facts, you know, flexibility is not something that everyone can achieve in the same manner. To force the body to a certain extent is a form of abuse. It is basically forcing your body to go to extreme measures in order to achieve something which your body may just generally not be capable of. You know? And there are people that just try and defy the laws of physics in order to achieve certain things, but you know, the body has its limits, and people need to realize that different bodies have different limits. But there are times where people try to defy those limits and force the body to go beyond. But in this instance, the body of this 13-year-old at the time reached a limit, but they tried to basically force her, but not for even her own gain, because she in the video was screaming, "No, no, no, please stop," and crying. So that's not her saying, "No, no, no, don't stop, push me further." That's her saying, "No, no, no, please stop." And as a carer of children, basically, whether you're a coach or a teacher or a parent, whatever, you're a caretaker of a child. You're basically the protector of a child. You're supposed to protect them from these kind of things, from predators, from people that are out for their own selfish gain, not to become one of them. And the fact that this coach did this sort of thing, and the fact that it is only a partially condemned action, not something that he was immediately, the fact that there was an investigation, the fact that it has taken perhaps this long, because this was a story, I believe, that actually only just came around in media outlets rather recently. And this is an old post, so this is like 2 years we're talking about here. If I'm wrong, well then okay, but maybe just someone else called on it late and then I called on the video of, you know, what it was. But nevertheless, the fact is that you would expect that that teacher would be fired immediately, the coach, whatever, and charged with child abuse, because that's just simply what it is. But also the fact that it's a partially condemned action, and why I say partially condemned, because I know for a fact, and I have insider knowledge, that this is often a common practice where they try and force you, into the splits, and then if you can only reach a certain level of splitting, if you will, they force you down, they put the weight on you just a bit more to go just a bit further than what your body is already physically capable of, instead of naturally stretching and gaining more flexibility over time. And the same thing also has happened in martial arts as well. There was an instructor, I forget his name, he's long dead, has been for years now, but he was a Japanese instructor, came over, migrated from Japan, hardly spoke a lick of English, you know, didn't really care to speak English, and, well, you know, the sort of almost racist culture that we have sometimes, like, oh, he's from Japan, oh, he's a karate instructor from Japan, oh, he must be very good, oh, he knows what he was talking about because he's Japanese. He was an arrogant, abusive man. He would whack people, you know, and when I say people, I mean, he was a teacher of students, so he'd whack students in order to get them to conform to a standard when performing, you know, their forms or kata or whatever you want to call it, you know, whatever you want to call it, but that's what it is, essentially forms, kata, that is, you know, demonstration. And I ran a seminar at my parents' club one time, and it was one time and one time only, and in the corner, there was, you know, getting people to do the splits as part of basically a kata seminar, a form seminar, and this one girl couldn't really get down to the level of splits, of flexibility that this instructor wanted. So he basically got all his weight, and, you know, her face was apparently, I wasn't there for it, my parents were. Her face was bright red as the reddest mat on the floor, on the training space. And basically there were a couple of instructors that basically arranged the whole thing, because our club was not so much hosting it as basically giving them the training space, because they had nowhere else to go at that time for that seminar. It was sort of a favor, and this instructor tried to force her down even lower, and at that point, you know, my parents basically said, no, put a stop to it. But then on the other hand, there were the people that organized to have him there and run it to begin with. But essentially, the instructors who they basically organized this seminar were like, oh my god, instead of like, oh my god, stop him, like, oh my god, oh, I just can't watch. And they turn their heads away. Like, oh, well, if I don't see it, then it's good for me. It doesn't make me feel any worse about myself. But my parents basically put a stop to it and basically said to the people running it that this instructor will never step foot in our club again. You know, none of our students went to this seminar. This was basically a seminar for another club, because it was part of a state-run organization, and we lent the training space. But basically, after that, our training space was off limits. This instructor was banned, and the word was that if we even catch winds that this person is doing that again, you know, we're calling the cops. We're going to have him arrested for, you know, child endangerment, for child abuse. And, you know, he shouldn't be doing that. He should be, you know, just how dare he, you know, but just arrogant instructor, and hid behind his so-called language barrier at that time. But in the case of this story here, we're talking about a full-blooded American, you know, coach. So there's nothing, not even a technicality that he could use as an excuse. Not that it should be anyway, but you catch my drift. But the moral of it all is basically, that's not what you're hired for. You're supposed to be there for the benefit of the children, not for your own benefit, and to try and get them to exceed their body's limits and to conform to your standards. Well, then you do that. And if you can't, well, then maybe we should force you into that position. Or maybe we should contort and conform you into, I don't know, just some other shape that which you find difficult in, you know, basically find painful and you can't necessarily get into, but we'll force you into it anyway, you know? But then I guess that would make us just as bad as you. But I guess you can always fantasize just a little, but hope that this instructor, this so-called coach, he should be fired, if he isn't already. I mean, this is just a post, Facebook feed. If I were to do some more backstory reference, research on it, maybe you'll find that he was fired, and if so, damn fine, good for that. But if not, needs to be, along with several other teachers in several different departments for much of the same reason, for child endangerment and child abuse, and basically neglecting a child's welfare, because that's essentially what this person has done. And here's another post, a list of 46 banned baby names revealed as of the September the 7th, 2017. So 46 names you cannot name your child. And here's the list for anyone who is currently pregnant or planning on having a child and naming them this particular name. The following 46 names have been banned, at least, I believe, in Australia, which is ironic because Australia is actually one of the banned names for a child in Australia. So, the others are Admiral, Anzac, that's a bit of a shame, Baron, Bishop, Brigadier, Brother, Cadet, Captain, Chief, Christ, Commodore. Okay, I can understand that one. Constable, Corporal, Dame, Duke, Emperor, Father, General, God, oh, Jesus, Honor, Judge, Justice, King, Lady. By the way, Jesus isn't banned, I was just using it as a joke reference to God being banned, like, oh, Jesus, God is banned. It says Judge, Justice, King, Lady, Lieutenant, Lord, Madam, Majesty, Major, Messiah, Minister, Mr., Officer, Premier, President, Prime Minister, Prince, Princess, Queen, Saint, Satan, Seaman, that is, Seaman, Sergeant, Sir, and Sister. So these were apparently all unsuccessfully registered in Victoria over the last 12 months by more than one parent. So, basically, because these lists of banned names are either because they're obscene or offensive, too long, contain symbols without phonetic significance, statements or phrases including acronyms, references, a public institution or public office, contains an official title or rank, which seems that they're the only ones that seem to have been added to the list of banned names, all about ranks, recognised in Australia, creates confusion in the community, may be considered reasonably likely to insult, humiliate, offend, or intimidate a person or group. Well, and apparently it also goes on to state, the Swedish government wouldn't register the name BRFXXCCXXMNP quadruple C triple L MMNPRXVCLM NKSSQLBB quadruple 1, while Denmark wouldn't let parents name their child Anus. Apparently, though, the New South Wales government allowed parents to name their kids God Bless, Metallica, and Fully Hectic, that's hectic with a K, and Sick, that is sick without a C, so S-I-K. Some of the most unusual names for girls included Disney, Tofu, Vader, Genesis, Phoenix, an odd spelling for it, and Wavy, while boys were named Anakin, Atlas, Creed, Danish, Zeus, Breeze, Falcon, and Stars. Some people just shouldn't have kids. Common sense does not prevail. If you don't have common sense, there should be I always think sometimes that, if if you don't have a certain mental capacity, there should be some sort of, at the very least, a competency test to show that you have enough brain power in order to think logically and actually think about somebody else before you have a child of your own. Because if you can't consider somebody else before yourself, especially, something selfish, because a name is given traditionally to a child, and it is supposed to be something that is honorable and dignified, something that establishes that person's identity. And yet there are people out there who take that for granted and just basically use that, what's interesting is that, there are probably names on the actual register which may cover them, but, there are certain names of people that it's like, what are you thinking? And we all know, we've all met at least one person in our lives where it's like, come on, really? Seriously? It's just, because then that child, at least for the next 16 to 18 years, has to, they have to deal with that. And it's almost a form of identity crisis as well, because when you name your child something and then they become aware of what their name is and what it truly means, and if it actually has no meaning at all, if it never did, if it was just something that the parents just wanted to call their child because, it sounds cool, or wouldn't it be funny if we named our child? It's like, no. If you want to name something stupid, then name like a creator wrestler or something that, like on a video game, or get a customized plate with that and put it on your car and see how you like being called that in association with your car at the very least. Or maybe name yourself that if you like it that much, but consideration and having respect for others. Because if you don't have that, then perhaps a name should be chosen by. And then it's like, oh, well, nanny state, this, that, everything. It's like, well, okay. Maybe it should be a case of you get 3 chances to name a child. And maybe if we were to have like a competency test to say, should you have a child? If we were to ever go to a point where it's like, okay, to have a child, you need to have a license to, God, I can't even remember the term. You basically to have a child. I forget the term. Consummate. No, not consummate. To impregnate. I don't know. Nevertheless, basically have a form, and one of the questions is, what would you name your child? And then process that through, and then you get 3 chances to name your child. And if you fail that question 3 times, bang. Well, basically, just the first time, this is what you want to name your child, bang, it's rejected. Why? Oh, because you wanted to name your child Poopy Butthole. Something stupid. I'm sure people have actually done stupid things like that, but nevertheless, it's a long, sordid rant on a silly little post. Here's a quick but interesting one. Maltesers dropped a brand new flavor, whether you're aware of it or not. Honeycomb Maltesers. Now that sounds delicious. If you like honeycomb, if you like honey, if you like Maltesers, then perhaps you should go grab yourself some. I haven't, but now that I'm aware of it, I think I'm going to get some. But not right now, because I'm dropping a Facebook feed once again while I'm multitasking, doing something else, doing 2 things at once, if people can't tell by this sort of audio quality, doing a little bit of work and podcasting at the exact same time. Whether anyone's actually listening or not is a different question, but nonetheless. So, let us see what else is in the Facebook feed. Jetstar to launch flights from Australia to Japan from $145. Now, that's pretty cool. Pretty cheap flights. I've always wanted to go to Japan and never really had much of an excuse. I mean, the Olympics are coming in 2020 and it's such a rich culture and, embedded in tradition, and it is certainly a place that I would definitely go, and perhaps at some point down the track there will be a 10-day tour featured for me. And I mean, Alan is, or otherwise known as Saver, he's already been to Japan. Whether he'd go, what happens later down the track, hard to say, but I know I'd definitely go there one day. Guess just gotta pick the time and the place, and I guess if flights are $145 to go to Japan, but what's the catch here? There's always got to be a catch. Let's read this post a little more in depth and see if there's a catch. That's if the post will even let me read it. So, trying to get the post to actually load while I'm doing this, while wasting everyone's time. Is there a catch? So, there's a budget airline launched flights to Japan from Australia with a free return flight home. Cairns to Tokyo from $289, which translates to two $145 flights. Cairns to Osaka, $299. Gold Coast to Tokyo, $319. I'm still trying to look for a catch here. Is it like a paper plane? Is there like a drug smuggling? What's going on? There's a lot of different other flights here. And flights depart from select dates 19th of November to 9th of July, depending where you are departing from. Apparently it's only going to run, off of a run until 20th of September. Bugger! Ow! I'm sure they'll have one later on that track. Knew there'd be some sort of catch. Knew there'd be something. I just knew it. I did. I knew it. I called it and I knew it. I guess the catch ultimately was there that, well, we did it. It's true, it's honest, but it's an old post. You missed your chance, dude. My goodness. Eyebrow wigs are now all the rage now. Okay, what the hell? So, eyebrow wigs. So, I guess the trend of being hairless, the shaving and all that, I guess now that's past. And now, the ladies, I guess, hair is good. Okay, whatever. But eyebrow wigs? This is weird. It's just odd. I mean, hair extensions is perhaps one thing, and, weaves and wigs, but eyebrow wigs? I mean, in the same vein, there's also a thing here where nostril hair extensions are also a thing. That's another post that's in my feed as well. So, we've got eyebrow wigs, which are a thing, and hair nostril extensions as well? I don't even think I'm going to read any more into that, because that just goes, the title just goes without saying, and that's rather insane. You're nuts. I mean, I could even say, okay, eyebrow wigs, but nostril hair extensions? Now, I think we've reached the quarter of the end of sanity. We've now crossed over into insanity. Good God. So, and this is one that came and went. Navy nurses fired after flipping off babies on social media. Now, this was something that was also deemed as racially biased and racially motivated. So, staff members at a naval hospital in Jacksonville, Florida, which this was 2 months ago, the post says it was, but still circulating around, found its way into my feed. Basically, they apparently thought it would be a good idea to use newborn infants as the butt of their jokes. So, they're basically grabbing babies and making them dance around to music and everything. These are newborn infants that shouldn't be mobile as they are, and they're grabbing them and jerking them around and doing that sort of thing. It's in a video, and then posted on social media a lady flipping off a newborn infant with the tag, "How I currently feel about these mini Satans." So that was a Snapchat post, and Naval Hospital in Jacksonville has apologized for what it calls outrageous, unacceptable, incredibly unprofessional conduct, and cannot be tolerated. Identified those involved, which are 2 staff, not nurses, as reported on some sites, apparently, like this one, or so they claim. And apparently they've been removed from providing patient care, and they will be handled by the legal system and military justice. And we've notified the patients. Now that's just interesting right there, because this is a naval hospital we're talking about here. So, I mean, the level of disrespect right there. I hope that they are held in contempt of their actions. They have clearly been condemned for them, and I hope they are held accountable and punished for those actions, because it's just absolutely unacceptable. It brings the whole hospital into disrepute as well. You know, the credibility of a hospital, you know, the one place where you're supposed to be able to go to get, you know, assistance for medical care to help you, and to be treated like that. You know, just imagine they do that to an infant child, you know, someone who is defenseless, helpless. You know, what if they were in like an aged care unit, you know, or intensive care unit, or, you know, even a palliative care unit? You know, that kind of stuff is just unacceptable, and I hope that they never, these 2 individuals, which it doesn't appear that they, oh, there it is, Allison Jeanette Thompson and Joni Barrett. So, these are the 2, and I hope that you are found guilty, and that you at least have the courage to basically hold yourself accountable for your actions, and that you never have the opportunity to be in that position ever again, because clearly you do not deserve to have the privilege, or rather even the rights, to assist for or even help to care for infants, or any other person for that matter, in your duty of care in such a field. And I hope that no one hires you, and that you go learn something from this, maybe go on a different path, because clearly if that's your attitude towards having to take care of these so-called little Satans, then you don't enjoy your job, you don't enjoy your profession, and you shouldn't just quit. And that's not me saying, you know, quit, you know, just quit your life. I'm just saying quit your job. You don't enjoy it. It's not even me being cynical right now. If you don't enjoy it, and this is what it brings you to, then it starts affecting people in that manner. You just need to walk away. You just need to cut your losses and just move on with your life. Because I know I've had to do that from time to time. It's not always the easiest decision, but it's the best one, because it's the one that makes sure that no one gets hurt. Yourself included, as well as anyone around you. Nobody is affected, and everyone goes home just a little happier and a little healthier, and they become better people. And I hope that they also learn from this and become better people themselves. But hey, these people, they may not learn their lesson, they'll find somewhere else maybe. it's something you just hope that they will learn from. If they don't, well then, I hope karma follows them wherever they go. Another old one, but a funny one. ABS, the Australian Bureau of Statistics, apologises as same-sex survey hits bum notes. This was because of a code that's on the back of the letter, which incidentally read in all caps, bum sex. So it's a combination of numbers and letters. It's basically automated and sent out. And one of them happened to somehow manages to either coincidentally come up with the code combination which ended up spelling out bum sex. And as a result, they've been forced to apologise. But I guess out of everything with regards to this whole plebiscite, which, I mean, the survey's now closed, but there's still, I guess, a little humour out of just how much of a catastrophe this whole thing has been, and certainly will continue to be going forward, but nevertheless. And here's quite an intriguing one right here. Nanny fired for drinking employer's breast milk. God. So a 58-year-old nanny in Taiwan has been dismissed from her job after she was allegedly caught drinking her employer's breast milk. So according to media reports, the employer known only by a surname Lin, well that's, you know, to identify that name down to narrow it down very easily, confronted the nanny after finding that her infant daughter had been finishing an entire bottle of breast milk too fast. It's obviously keeping it for storage for, the purpose of the infant. Lin, who is from Kaohsiung City, had hired the nanny during the confinement periods to help take care of the newborn. One day, saw the nanny with an empty milk bottle, asked where the milk was out of curiosity before realizing the nanny had drunk the milk that the infant could not finish. You know what? I think that's enough. And I think that's enough internet. That's enough Facebook feed filler, whatever you want to call it. I think that's enough internet. You have presented me with several different Facebook feeds, articles, posts, whatever you want to call them, but I think I'm just going to stop it right there after that one. A good person knows when to call time, when to call it quits, and go when you're on top. But I think maybe with that post I kind of waited just a little too late. Oh well. But anyway, for those who stuck around for this little filler episode, the Facebook feed full edition, thank you very much. And I promise you that there will be more interesting content in the next week, unless I get lazy and throw another bank episode in. But in the meantime, my name is Liam. Like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed. But in the meanwhile, I'll see you guys next time.